Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Woohoo! Welcome to the snowy, original Loretta Brown show. Radio to open the heart, heal the soul, and awaken the consciousness. Benny,
Yes.
it's snowy. I like your sweater.
Thank you very much. I was respecting the snow outside, inside, and outside and inside. So I have a couple here, feeling the winter wonderland.
I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope everybody stays safe out there.
Yep.
At my house, it was 17 degrees this morning. I know some people were colder.
It was brisk.
Brisk.
It was brisk.
It was very brisk. Yeah. Yesterday I went out walking and I was really glad I have great traction boots because it was icy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it's right before the holidays, of course, everyone just slow down. No need to rush. You'll get there. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Christmas is on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
This is Thursday. So there's still 2 days, 3 days to get ready in case you didn't do that yet.
Right? In addition to, we encore this show, out on the Monday. So if you hear it again, it's for the holidays.
It's for the holidays. Yeah. That's absolutely right.
Sure.
Anyway, I have a great guest for us today, and I'll bring him on in a minute. It's real timely to have him. I am Loretta Brown. I'm the owner of Reiki Oasis, located right here in the greater Seattle area. And the Crystal Bowl concert has been rescheduled for January 21st due to ice and snow. And then I'm doing my New Year's ceremony, my despacho, Thursday, December 29th at 7 p.m. And I might be full. There might be one seat left. You can sign up for everything at schedule.reikioasis.com. And wow, we're almost done with 2022. So get ready. We have several things that have happened on Tuesday of this week, December 20th. Jupiter entered Aries, where it will remain for most of 2023. And this position of Jupiter promises happiness, hope, joy, and golden opportunities in 2023. On Wednesday, yesterday, we had the winter solstice, a magical time of the year where we honor the light and the dark within. And in the Northern Hemisphere, where I'm at, it's the shortest day and the longest night. And it encourages us to be a little bit more introspective and reflect on our inner selves. It marks the birth or the return of the sun. As from this day forward, the days will get longer. So at the time of setting incubation and setting your dreams for the world to come, and it is a very hopeful time. Also yesterday, on Wednesday, December 21st, the sun moved from fiery Sagittarius into the earth sign of Capricorn. And Capricorn always reminds us that by persevering and believing in ourselves, we can make things happen. So use the earthy energy of the Capricorn season, especially when it comes to your goals. Friday, December 23rd, we have a Capricorn super new moon. Jupiter in Aries is at 0 degrees, which is a supercharged point that initiates new cycles and is making a dynamic aspect to the sun in Capricorn, who is also at 0 degrees. So this Capricorn new moon is the second new moon in a row to fall at 1 degree. Interestingly, the next 3 new moons also follow this trend, making all the new moons from now through March at 1 degree. So these synchronicities are very rare. When we have things that are at 0 degrees, 1 degrees, it's just where that cycle begins. And many people are talking about the fact that we are on the brink of a new world, and we are the ones helping to create it. So bring that into focus as you move forward from the rest of this year into next year. And then also Chiron, the wounded healer, has been stationing retrograde since July, helping us heal things from the past. Yeah. Any of you have things from the past stepping forward, going, you thought you were done with me, but whoop, here I am. Well, Capricorn or Chiron reminds us it is in our power to take our wounds and turn them into powerful portals of healing, not just for ourselves, but for others. Yeah. Whoa. That's a great platform to bring my guest in. So my guest today is Stephen Washington, the author of Recovering You, soul care, and mindful movement for overcoming addiction. And as a former professional dancer who performed on Broadway in Disney's The Lion King, his love of movement inspired him to become the highly acclaimed QiGong and Pilates teacher that he is today. We're going to hear about his journey. I can't wait. Stephen lives a joyful life of recovery and is passionate about helping others as they navigate towards health and happiness. And he offers Qigong, Pilates, dance, meditation, laughter, and more through his website. Welcome to the show, Stephen. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Loretta. It's lovely to be here. Nice to meet you finally.
Yeah, really nice to meet you, and love to your husband, Lee. Thank you. I need to get him back on the show. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I have your beautiful book here, Recovering You, Soul Care and Mindful Movement to Overcoming Addiction. And I just want to say this, the last few years during the pandemic and the lockdown, I think addictions have really stepped forward. Everybody's been talking about all the issues with disease, but actually drug abuse, alcoholism, things like that, mental health has really stepped to the forefront. So I'm really thrilled that your book is out and it's really got wonderful help for people. So I would really like for you to tell us about yourself and go through your journey a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
What I will do is kind of what we do generally in 12-step recovery. We talk about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. So
Yes.
what it was like was I grew up in a really small family that was impacted greatly by trauma, generational trauma. And the best way that my family knew how to deal with that trauma, and I don't even think that they were conscious of it, was to use substances, right, to help them cope. And so I was around that from a very early age. I had examples and models of how to move through life with the use of outside sources, outside things to help you, one, feel okay, safe in the world. My home life was very chaotic. I was a very sensitive child, very anxious child. One of the things that I started to do very early on was bite my fingernails in order to self-soothe and self-regulate, and many other things. And then I eventually found food, and food was a source of comfort for me. And then eventually I found my way to alcohol. When I was 15, I had my first drink of alcohol when I was 15 years old, and I'll never forget how it made me feel. I felt like I could finally breathe when I had that first drink, and I finally felt like I was a part of instead of apart from. It made me feel more comfortable in my skin. It made me feel like I was able to talk to people and be with people, and that was always a big challenge for me prior to that. It's also important for me to note that one of the things, the gifts that the universe gave me very early on was a gift for dance, a gift for the arts. And one of the things I think that helped me to survive, especially early on, was just this creative spirit that I had. I would just twirl and dance in my living room, put music on the stereo, and just lose myself. And that was one of the ways that I helped myself cope with what was going on in my life. Um, but eventually I found alcohol, and the way that it made me feel that first time is something that I tried to recreate over and over and over again for the next 20 some odd years.
Mm.
I finally made my way to New York City and studied dance at NYU and built a really wonderful career as a dancer. I eventually made my way from small dance companies to Broadway stages, and I was in the production of The Lion King, Disney's The Lion King, for about 9 years. Was a part of 3 different companies of that show. And when I first started that show, I was in full-blown addiction. I was drinking daily. I was using drugs daily. I was trying to manage life through substances, and it just got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't imagine my life without drugs and alcohol, but I also couldn't imagine my life with it. So I was definitely at a crossroads. And what happened for me was I just became sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I just happened to have a good friend of mine who was in recovery, who was just this beacon of light for me, much like I'm trying to be a beacon of light for people in the pages of Recovering You. He was a beacon of light for me, and he listened to me when I shared with him honestly what was going on with me. And he took me to my first 12-step meeting, and I continued along that path one day at a time, and I managed to just put together some time, and my life opened up in a really beautiful way. I finally felt like I had a blueprint for life. I always felt like I didn't know how to do this life thing, as if life came with a manual, and I just was, maybe I was in the bathroom when God was giving out the manual of how to live life. But I always felt like I didn't have what I needed, that I wasn't well equipped for it. And when I entered recovery, I felt like I had a blueprint finally of how to live a life that was healthier and balanced and soul led. Uh, and I had many wonderful examples of how to do that. And I would say it wasn't until about 10 years of sobriety that I found the methods, the tools, the practices that I teach in Recovering You, especially the movement practices and the massage and the deep breathing and meditation. I didn't find that until about 10 years into my recovery. And I found it during a process of going back to school for traditional Chinese medicine. After I left theater, I became a Pilates instructor, and I decided that I wanted to learn something else that I could offer my clients and to help them help themselves and live healthier lives. And so I thought I would go back to school and become a Chinese doctor. And I worked very hard to do that. I moved from New York to California to do it. And I was so certain that that's what I was supposed to do. I finally entered the program only to discover that that wasn't what I was meant to do. And that was a very difficult realization for me to have. I come from a place where if you make a decision, you make up your mind, you can't change it. You have to go forward, even if you suddenly feel otherwise. So that's a very, very strict, very rigid way of looking at life and the world. And I went through this process of extreme anxiety, and I would have panic attacks before classes and sweaty palms, and I would cry before each day I'd go into class, just so worried and just so paralyzed by the fear I was feeling. And I honestly thought that I was going to relapse during that time. And it wasn't until I started taking QiGong, which is the practice that I teach in the books, in the pages of Recovering You. It wasn't until that entered my life through the Chinese medicine program that things started to shift for me. Because Qigong is a practice that gave me space in my body and space in my mind. It allowed me to zoom out and get a bigger picture. You know, when we're going through something challenging, oftentimes we can't see beyond where we are. And Qigong just has the medicine of it, has the amazing power of just giving one space and perspective. And it helps us to energize our body, but also bring a sense of calmness and groundedness. And also it allows us to focus our mind and just move the energy through the body. And sometimes that energy is emotional energy, and it can get stuck. And at that point in my life, my emotional energy was stuck and stagnant. And then I received that incredible gift. And from that moment on, I knew that I had to share that medicine with the world. And then several years later, I just had the inspiration to write a book that would bring these practices to people, to help them the way that they've helped me. I wish that all the things that I teach in Recovering You, I wish that I had them from the very first day that I began recovery. But we get the message when we get the message. And I'm just so happy to be able to share them with people now.
I am so honoring of you sharing your story, and so happy that you did it, because I know that addiction is a real thing, and that a lot of people don't understand it. And I feel like I have 85 things to say. They're all trying to come out at once. But this idea, a lot of people are like, oh, well, okay, so you did your 12-step program, so you're good now, right? And it's not like that, is it?
It's an ongoing process. The work never really ends. There is no destination. It is really all about the journey. I think what I've learned in 12-step recovery, and what I've learned through my own experience of recovery and these practices, is that it's all about self-care.
Yeah.
And self-care is a full-time job.
Yeah.
And our commitment to it ebbs and flows through life. But taking care of ourselves, body, mind, and spirit, is our each and every one of us. That's our responsibility while we're on the planet. And we can't really be of service to anyone else unless we start with by taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about, there's a lot of misunderstanding about addiction and what addiction is, and what people go through. And I want to say that this book is for anyone, no matter where they are on their recovery journey, whether they're brand new, whether they have some time, whether they have a long spell or a long period of recovery, and they just want something else in their life to help them to enhance it. It's for those people, but it's also for the people who love people who are affected or in addiction, who are affected by it. Because through the pages, you hear about my story, but I also have friends in recovery who I've talked to in the pages of the book. So I really wanted to create community. And perhaps by reading the book, people will understand their loved one a little bit more. And the practices that are in the book are for everyone. It's very stressful and challenging to work through the process of addiction and recovery.
Yeah.
And we all need support. So
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to provide.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was actually wanted to make sure we brought that point out. So thank you. Our hearts are in the same place. Addiction to me is, okay, so there's the person that has the addiction, but there is the family and there is the community. And often I think the person with addiction ends up in isolation or through a lot of misunderstanding, like that's a really difficult place to be in. Yeah. So compassion with boundaries, perhaps, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boundaries are a gift to yourself, and also a gift to those that you love and who you interact with. It's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. I'm also thinking about, you were talking about your addictions, right? Which were drugs and alcohol, I think. And but we can have so many other addictions, like food or social media or shopping or
Work.
Yeah.
Sex.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
so many things.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit, because you said something and my ear just went like that. And you do have your story in your book, but you said something about when you took that first drink, you could breathe. Would you please talk about the breath?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because I felt that. Like, did you go through your whole life? I mean, Stephen, were you holding your breath for like 15 years or something?
Yeah, basically. I think when
Yeah.
we don't love ourselves, when we don't move through the world in an authentic way, when we feel like we don't have the right to stand in the spot that we're standing in on the planet, right? That can kind of take your breath away, and not in a good way.
Right.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I always felt like I was walking on eggshells because I knew that. I mean, one thing I could say that I didn't mention as part of my story is that when I was growing up, I knew that I was different. I knew that I was not like the other boys, which I later discovered that I was gay. And in my family, that wasn't something that was understood or supported. I didn't feel like that part of myself was welcomed. And so I hid it. And that's enough to make you anxious and depressed
Yeah.
and to take your breath away. So once I had my first drink, which was a beer in a German pub with my dance teacher at the time, she took some of her students to Germany for part of a summer. It was one of the most amazing times of my life. But on that last night of being there, we partied at a local pub, and I had a beer, and I hated the taste of it, but boy, I loved how it made me feel.
Yeah.
And I was finally able to, like, my shoulders were in my ears before that, and I was able to drop my shoulders. And I was able to have conversations and feel like I could connect with other people. And so I knew that, oh, I need to do this, needs to be a part of my life going forward, because this is the magic elixir. Only to find out years later when I discovered QiGong that there's another elixir that I can use to help me
Yeah.
feel better in my body. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. The natural elixir.
the
Right.
healing properties within each and every one of us. I was able to tap into that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you do talk in the book about the breath
yeah.
and the importance of that. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so the breath is, we can tell a lot about how we're feeling by how we're breathing.
Hmm.
When we're feeling stressed, our breaths are very short and shallow. But when we're more relaxed, they're deeper, they're fuller. And when we can get our body to breathe deeply, move the diaphragm, and also to relax into the breath, we're able to switch from fight, flight, freeze to a more restful, restorative, relaxed way of being. And it shuts off the release of the stress hormones that our body produces. Now, mind you, those stress hormones serve a purpose. It's not always bad for those things to be turned on in the right way at the right time. But for those of us who are um, very sensitive, like I am very sensitive, a
Yes.
very overly sensitive or hyper sensitive nervous system, that can easily be triggered. And so it's constantly being released, and then that has a negative impact on the body.
Yeah.
So the breath is really important, and it's something that's accessible to us each and every day, any time of the day, anywhere. We breathe countless times per day, but many of us don't do it with awareness. Many of us don't do it very well. So it's really helpful to pay attention to how you breathe uh, at some point each and every day, because it's an automatic reset for us when we can do that.
I'm smiling because I love what you're saying so much. In my own work and in my own personal experience, right? Sometimes I'll say to people, like I was talking to someone the other day, she's telling me all about her stuff, and she says, Loretta, do not tell me to breathe. Because I do. I go, okay, let's just exhale, right? And let's just, and sometimes people say, I don't have time for that. You don't understand. And I'm like, you don't have time not to do it. Like,
Yeah.
really slide back down into your body, come back.
It's a
Yeah.
story that we tell ourselves, that we don't have
Yeah.
time to breathe, or we don't have time to to pay attention to the breath and just put a little bit of effort in calming ourselves down by breathing deeply, right? Some of us, I think, get attached or even addicted to the energy that we feel when we are stressed. That there's this, that's a whole other thing. That's a
The
whole other,
adrenaline rush or
yeah,
that
yeah.
thing.
And it's something that we're not even conscious of.
Mm-mm.
You know, that's a tape that's been playing for many of us a long, long, long time, and that's how we've dealt with life and coped with life. So
Yeah,
I get it.
I also think it's tied with drama,
Yeah.
addiction to drama.
Mhm.
And also you mentioned trauma a moment ago, and there's this thing about victimhood or the trauma drama, this sort of a thing where and I've had people say to me, but if I don't, if I don't drink, Loretta, what am I going to do? Who's my friends? And it's so exciting or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard to let that go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so important that if you're going to take steps to change your life and remove something that's causing you harm out of your life, it's really important that you replace it with something else.
Yeah.
So you don't just leave a void. And what I offer in the book, the suggestions, the tools, are things that people can use to substitute, and I always think that it's been my experience that successful recovery and satisfying recovery is a multi-pronged thing. You have to cast a very wide net when you are in recovery and just gather as many tools as you can and work with what resonates with you and what serves you, and not just rely on one thing alone. Like, I love 12-step recovery. It provided me a great foundation. It changed my life. And then there's more.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there's more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to say one other thing, because before we move away, because we were just talking about the breath, one of the things that I find interesting too, when it comes to breath work or any other practice that I teach, there's a level of simplicity about it all.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all kind of used to or expect any kind of solution in life to be complicated. So you offer something like, let's just take a moment to breathe. People are thinking, I think, well, this can't possibly work. How is breathing going to help me? Something so simple. Do you not understand what I'm going through or what my problems are?
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be as simple.
Yeah.
It can be as simple as that, as a simple component to a bigger plan of how to address life and its challenges and move through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. We're going to take a station break. And of course, this is Loretta Brown and my guest today, Stephen Washington. I love this conversation. His book, Recovering You, Soul Care and Mindful Movement for Overcoming Addiction. And don't go away. When we come back, we're going to get into more about what's actually in his book and what are some really helpful things for all of you listening. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Cool. All clear, you two? No, not on the commercial break.
Did you know that Reiki healing can be done at a distance? It's true. So let Reiki Oasis focus powerful energy to help relieve your stress, grief, sadness, anger, and so much more. Convenient, personalized treatments at a distance can increase lightness of being. During your appointment, find a quiet place to lie down or sit to receive healing energies. If you want help with your dis-ease, visit ReikiOasis.com. Harness life's energy. Visit ReikiOasis.com today.
Have something important to say? Want to help improve our world? Need to promote your business uniquely and effectively? KK&W is the answer. Our staff helps broadcasters and podcasters create professional sounding audio. Bring your talent and let our experts help you craft a radio show or podcast that best delivers your message. Learn more at 1150kknw.com. That's 1150kknw.com. KKNW, talk variety that's live and local.
COVID-19 is a severe lung infection. Trust the American Lung Association for science-based public health information, especially for the 36 million Americans who live with lung disease. We have resources to protect your lung health. Access expertise from medical professionals and peer-to-peer support through our online communities. Visit lung.org for daily updates or call 1-800-LUNG-USA.
Alternative Talk 1150, here to uplift your day.
Hey, to interrupt there. You ready to come back? All right. Stand by.
Welcome back to the original Loretta Brown Show with original Loretta Brown. That's how that works. Anyway, my guest today is Stephen Washington. His wonderful book, Recovering You, Soul Care and Mindful Movement for Overcoming Addiction. I want to remind everybody that these shows are archived and downloadable. You can listen to this show over and over again at the 1150 KKNW archives for the original Loretta Brown Show. And we're on iTunes, Podcast One, Spotify, YouTube. Well, we're in places I don't even know we're at. So please go back and listen to it over and over again. And Stephen, I am going to do this. I'm sending love to your mom. Thank her, just from my heart to her, mom's heart to mom's hearts. Moms know. If you know, you know. That's it. Right?
I'm sure
So
she'll appreciate that.
Yeah. And so we are talking about addictions. We're also talking about Stephen's book, which is, I want you to talk a little bit about how you've set this book up and how to use this book.
Very good question. So just a little history about this process that's in the pages of Recovering You. The book was originally an online course. I created an online course back in, I think, 2018. But when I created that course, I knew that was just the beginning of the conversation. And so it was such an amazing gift to be able to have the opportunity to put this book down, this information down on paper for people to use. And the book is set up in a way that, first of all, I wanted people to understand and get to know me. So the beginning of the book is just an introduction to me and my story, and also a little bit about what's in the book, the different tools that I teach in the book. And then we move on to self-care practices. I wanted to give people practices that they could use as they move through the book, like deep breathing and self-massage, because it's really important to have practices that bring you into the present moment. Oftentimes we stare at the past, or we look towards the future with fear and anxiousness. But we hold our power in the present moment. So all those practices, including meditation, bring us into the present moment. Through the rest of the chapters, I talk about different things that we deal with in addiction, like fear and isolation and shame. So some of the problems that we have. And then I also look at some of the solutions too, like social support, making sure that you have social support, having a level of gratitude. We also look at faith. And I also try to provide people with strategies around triggers and what to do when you feel triggered, because we are all, if you're dealing with addiction, there are things that are going to be triggering. And what do you do when you feel triggered? It's important to have a plan of action so that you're not taken by surprise. And I wanted to give voice to the many people who are a part of my life, who are in recovery, who have really important things to say about their experience with addiction and recovery. And a lot of the people are addicts and alcoholics like myself, but also I have a friend in the book who speaks from the perspective of being a person who loves someone who is addicted, and her codependency. She talks about that. And I have another friend who talks very openly about food and her issues with food. So I really wanted the book to be a just one important piece of anyone's recovery strategy or recovery toolbox.
Yeah, I love that idea, recovery toolbox.
Yeah, and there's also movement at the end of each chapter.
Yeah.
Because the movement is a really important thing, because as we know in the world today, when we talk about trauma, I love Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, because the truth is that the trauma is held in the tissues. And when we have that trauma that settles in the body, it affects the brain, but it also affects how we hold our body, the amount of tension and pain that we feel. And it's important to have practices like QiGong to help move that energy, that physical energy, as well as that emotional and mental and spiritual energy through the body.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say something to the listeners, because I love your whole book. Number one, it's very well written, easy to read, and very useful. That's what I'm going to say. It's very useful. But in the part where you talk about self-massage, you have such great detail in there. And as an energy worker, a body worker myself, I really understand so clearly that we do get energies, we get emotions, we get thoughts, and even memories stuck in parts of the body. And it will affect how you hold yourself, how you walk, and even how you present in the world. So I think sometimes we just go into resistance, right? Extreme resistance. I don't want to look at that. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to think about that. And if you can just move that energy, right? And I think you even say in the book something about move a muscle, change a thought.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really, because it's easy, I think, in the world today and in life to try to approach everything just from the mind, from the brain. Like, we can think ourselves out of any problem that we have, but it's important to take a physical action in order to create a certain level of change and transformation in life. Yes, there's thought and there's intention, but action is required as well. And I love that you mentioned the self-massage. One of the things that I learned when I was in massage school is that massage is a way to, yes, move energy through the body, help us to process things that we're feeling, but also it's a wonderful mechanism to bring oneself into the present moment, but also to feel connected to yourself, because I think there's oftentimes a disconnection from self.
Yeah.
But also, if we receive body work from another person, it's a way to pull oneself gently out of isolation.
Yeah.
An addiction is a very isolating disease. And I feel as though body work with first with yourself, and then also with another person that you trust, is a very important part of the process of healing and recovering.
Yeah. And you probably have experienced this. I myself have, and maybe the listeners. Sometimes when you go just to get a massage, people will end up crying, right? And or if you're working on yourself, you will have that release.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's all part of the journey, it's all part of the journey. On the other spectrum, you do laugh yoga. Could you talk about that a moment?
Yes, I do. I think laughter is so healing. And I say this in the book too, that recovery can feel and be such a serious thing. And life can feel like it's such a serious thing to live through. But it's important to find moments of laughter wherever and whenever you can. And so it's just important to laugh, because it provides so many benefits for the body. Not only is it good for digestion, but it's also great for self-regulation. There's just countless benefits to it. And laughter medicine made its way into my life when I moved to California from the East Coast. I was at a church in the Bay Area, and the woman who led the service just invited us all to stand up and to just start laughing. First, she started to laugh, and then everyone else started to laugh, and then we were all laughing just hysterically for like 2 or 3 minutes. And it was the best thing. I had never done that before. And it's not like she told a joke, she just started to laugh.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Laughter, for me, when I practice it for myself, I will just start to laugh, and then my laughter makes me laugh more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just such an incredible release. And we all need a release.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend it. And it's something like the breath that's available to all of us. But I find it interesting, like you said, with touch and massage, sometimes when you receive touch at a certain place at a certain time, it can cause an emotional release. Sometimes that emotional release could be tears, but
Yeah.
sometimes it could be laughter. It could be something else. It comes out in different ways for different people.
Yeah, it is.
And one of the things that I find fascinating is when I teach laughter to people, people will often say to me, I can't seem to get myself to laugh. Or when I try to laugh, I start to cry.
Yeah.
And that worries people. And I always try to encourage them to not be worried about it. I think that what they're experiencing is a wonderful learning or a learning opportunity, just to know where they are in terms of how they experience how they're able or not able to tap into joy. And I tell people that if they can't laugh, start with a smile. Just start by lifting the corners of your mouth and just smiling. There's so much that we can gain from just smiling, just moving the muscles of our face, which communicates with the brain, which then releases those feel-good hormones that we get when we laugh. It's all there. So just start from where you're at and just be open and willing. So you're gonna make me start laughing too.
I couldn't help it. Sorry.
See?
Yeah. So
You have a
I
beautiful laugh.
thank you. I was thinking about when I was a little girl, and my dad would be like, okay, it's time for a work party. Let's go sweep the garage or something. And I'd be like, right. And he would start laughing, and I would be like trying so hard not to laugh, and it, pretty
Yeah.
soon we're cleaning and laughing,
Oh, that's beautiful. What a great memory. I love that.
Yeah, it's a great memory. Anyway, yes, that's what happens. Sometimes when you're trying not to laugh, that's when you're going to do it. So,
Yeah.
but it does lighten us up, right?
It
It
does.
changes us. Yeah, really important to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, because I know shame is a big part of addictions, right? Right.
Mhm.
What can we do to loosen its grip on us?
Very good question. It's been my experience that shame is something that we all experience, right? It doesn't discriminate. We all have experience with that in life.
Yeah.
And for people who are dealing with addiction, it kind of goes to another level in terms of the shame that we feel and how we carry it and how that fuels our addictions. I always suggest, like I do in the pages of the book, that people seek help in dealing with the shame that they're feeling. Uh, there is something to be said about having support as you walk through the things that you feel shame about, that you've been carrying with you, that is affecting the quality of your life. And I feel as though it's so important to not keep your shame to yourself.
Right.
Uh, Famed psychologist or sociologist Brene Brown, who's done so much work around shame, talks about how shame needs three things to survive, and that's secrecy, silence, and judgment. And
Yeah.
and it's one of the ways that I have been able to change my relationship with shame is to find someone that I trust who can witness me and my shame so that I'm no longer keeping it a secret, so that I'm no longer being silent about it. One of the things that happens when you share shame with someone else, there's a level of identification, because there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to emotions and what we feel. So much of it is universal. But when you are steeped in shame, it's easy to believe that what you're feeling is that no one else could possibly understand. And then if we can find someone who can listen and not judge us, then that gives us permission and an invitation to be more compassionate and loving to ourselves when it comes to how we feel about ourselves. To turn this thought or idea that we are unworthy, that there is something inherently wrong with us, which I think is at the core of shame.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to know that you are worthy and that you are lovable and that you are more than just the shame that you feel.
Yeah. Way more than just the shame that you feel. Very well said. We are not our emotions, we're having the emotions. Yeah. We're not our thoughts, we're having the thoughts. Yeah. Kind of get you into that place. You have so many wonderful things in your book. What is a gratitude break?
A gratitude break is when you take a moment to acknowledge the things in your life that you're grateful for. And when we can do that, and it doesn't take long to do, we tap into optimism. And optimism is a wonderful thing that helps us to just move forward in life. When we're more optimistic about where we are, what we have, and what the future may hold for us, it's so easy to just focus on what's wrong, what we don't have. Oh, I don't have this, or I don't have that, or my life is missing this. I wish I had this, or I wish I had that. Well, what is it that you do have right now? I mean, no matter how bad things are, if we take the time to look, there are things to be grateful for. I know for me in this moment, I'm grateful that I woke up today, because a lot of people don't wake up in the morning, right? A lot of people pass away in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that breath that I'm breathing right now, the air that I'm breathing. A lot of people can't breathe. I can breathe.
Yeah.
I'm happy, I'm grateful that I'm sitting here with you having this beautiful conversation and meeting you and your energy for the first time.
Yeah.
How lovely is this? And on top of all of it, I'm sober today. Because there was a time when I would, at this time of the day, I'd be still feeling the effects of the night before. And I don't have to feel that anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So just taking time to do that, writing it down. If you don't have time to write it down, come up with a list in your mind of what you're grateful for. But it's really helpful to write things down. Or I also like to take pictures with my phone of things that I'm grateful for. If it's physical things that are happening in my life, I take pictures of my cats all the time. I'm so grateful for them.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, gratitude changes the brain.
Yeah. Gratitude and laughter. We're
Yeah.
in. Yeah, I'm in with you. Okay.
Mhm.
You say that you had some difficulty kind of tapping into this idea that there's a higher power out there. What could you say to someone who also does that? Because I know a lot of people come to me and they go, really, seriously, Loretta, like if there was a God, why is all this going on? Right?
Right.
So can you just address that a little bit? And then you have something you call breath prayers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I have a whole chapter in the book about faith, and and when I talk about faith in the book, I talk about it two different ways. I talk about, of course, faith in something outside of ourselves, a power greater than ourselves, and for some people that's God. For some people that's other, depending upon what your spiritual background is.
Mhm.
But it doesn't have to be a God. It can just be just acknowledgement that there are things in the world, there are powers in the world, there are forces in the world that are greater than you, like nature. For many people, nature is their higher power because it's a power that's greater than all of us. In 12-step, there are people who start 12-step recovery and don't believe in God and have an issue with that. So what's often recommended is that you have faith in the group of drunks, right? In the collective wisdom of the group. Because that is a power greater than yourself. I know for me, I heard very early on that when I'm in a bind, when I'm in a difficult space in my recovery, and I might even feel like I'm on the verge of relapse, I could try to call up people to help me. But if I can't get anyone on the phone, maybe sometimes the only thing that stands between me and that drink is my connection to this power greater than myself that gives me strength.
Yeah.
That gives me support. So I love what's said in the book by my friend Jennifer, who talks about it's okay that you don't believe, that there is a power out there that's greater than all of us that believes in you. And when I talk about faith in the book, I also talk about faith in yourself, having faith in yourself. And that's a process of learning how to have faith in yourself, because oftentimes in addiction, we don't trust ourselves because we've tried to do right or to fix things and change things, and we've let ourselves down. So it's a process of developing faith in ourselves. I felt like it was an important thing to talk about in the book.
I think that's really important, faith in yourself, because like you say, we do let ourselves down. In our last few minutes, I'd like you to talk about your online presence and SWE. Yeah.
So I have a website, Stephen Washington Experience, and on my website you can purchase the book. The book is available on my website, Amazon, other booksellers, also on Audible. I read for the audiobook, so you'll hear my voice. Some people say that my voice is very soothing and calming.
Yes, it is.
And there's a PDF form that goes with that, with all the exercises in it. And also on the website, there is a video of the video sequence of the exercises from the book, because we all learn in different ways. They're all my offerings on Stephen Washington Experience, and links to all of my social media platforms where I create content. And there's also my membership community, the SWE Studio, which is a community where I create wellness content for. I have a class that I teach that blends Pilates and QiGong, two mindful movement modalities. And I also provide other wellness practices to people. And I think of those practices and what I teach in that community as continuing education. That the book is an introduction to this process of self-care in this way.
Yeah.
And that's SWE Studio is a continuation of that to help keep that as a part of your life.
I know we have like a minute left. For people that have trouble bringing in something new into their life, very briefly, what advice can you give them? And what is the last things that you want to say to people today?
People have difficulty bringing things into their lives. I think it's important to just start simply. Start with where you are. Circling back to what we were talking about in terms of self-care and the breath. We all have the breath.
Yeah.
And the breath is oftentimes a window into deeper parts of yourself and change and transformation. So I'll say that. And the three things that I would like to leave people with is a knowledge that they're not alone in whatever they're challenged by. And that I hope that they have a belief that they are worthy of change and transformation, because they are. And then I hope that they get from this book tools that they can use to help themselves change their lives.
Yeah. Thank you so much. My guest today, Stephen Washington, recovering you. Wow, that's big. Soul care and mindful movement for overcoming addiction. Thank you so much for blessing us with your presence today. It was really delightful and wonderful. Benny, you're the best. And to everybody out there, oh boy, go forth and get ready because life is happening. Yeah. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.